But under the cold, violet glare of the imaging lamp, the margins bleed a new truth. A pigment, invisible for half a millennium, awakens. A ghost text, shimmering between the pious Latin. It's not a confession. It's not a history. It's an instruction manual. Your breath catches in your throat, a sharp, dry sound in the sterile lab. Here are the formulas for herbs that thin the veil. Here are the resonant symbols, geometric keys that unlock pathways in the mind. Here are the mental disciplines, the forgotten art of navigating the currents of the collective soul. It's all here. It's the fear of a power so vast and so patient, it can edit a people out of existence, one broken heart at a time. But this vast, meticulous purge had an unintended consequence they could never have predicted. By trying to scatter the gifted bloodlines to the wind, they didn't destroy the seed. They just taught it how to grow in the dark. They don't know it's a sophisticated acoustic attack, a sonic key designed to turn a lock deep inside the human brain. Modern science would later discover the truth buried in the physics of this place. Specific low-frequency sound waves, the sub-audible tones produced by the largest pipes and the heaviest bells, are now known to disrupt the brain's ability to enter deep REM sleep. It's the same principle behind modern crowd control systems that use low-frequency sound to create feelings of unease and disorientation. The Church perfected this technique a millennium ago. They weaponized sacred spaces. The weight on your chest isn't a dream. They call it the incubus, the demon that lies upon you in the suffocating dark. And 99% of people, then and now, accept this as simple superstition, a folktale born from bad food and a guilty conscience. But they want you to believe that. The truth is what's been buried in a forgotten medical manuscript, a text from the University of Salerno that historians have quietly ignored for centuries. It describes a terrifying surge in what it calls violent nocturnal afflictions, and the pattern is undeniable. 3 massive, unexplained payments routed through a Genoese bank to a man described only as a Moorish artisan, a master craftsman from Al-Andalus, renowned for his work in astrolabes and strange mechanics. They didn't bury a rock. They buried a machine built by a genius they later tried to erase from time itself. This device, we now believe, was an amplifier for what some mystics called the Echo of Eden. They make your first sleep so profound, so unbroken, that your mind can travel further than it ever has before. This is a truth that echoes into our own time. It's the same cynical mechanism modern corporations use to pathologize natural human states, creating a disease to sell you a cure you never needed. The Church needed you sick with sin, chained to your waking guilt. The healer wants you free in your own mind. As she gives you the small pouch of herbs, her eyes hold a dark and serious light. She whispers a warning. They believe the machine in Aachen was dismantled, the dream navigators executed, and humanity was successfully reprogrammed for a single, dreamless, productive block of slumber. They were wrong. The secret they buried is in your hands. It feels impossibly light. A small book of hours, its vellum pages softened by 5 centuries of silence. You can smell the dry, sweet scent of forgotten time. The book belonged to a woman they called a dream witch before they burned her. To the naked eye, it's just prayers. The powerful have always sought to control not just what you do, but the very essence of who you are. The priest dips his quill in a pot of ink. The scratching sound it makes against the parchment is the only noise in the room. He is making a note. 2 names. 1 forbidden union. Your bloodline and Ilara's, now marked in a ledger you will never see. You feel a cold dread that has nothing to do with God. This entire building is an instrument, and you are the string being played. The priest's chant echoes, bouncing from pillar to pillar, a hypnotic drone. Then, the organist pulls the stops. A sound erupts that is more felt than heard. It's not a note, it's a pressure wave, a deep, gut-rumbling thrum that vibrates through the floor, up your legs, and settles like a heavy, sleeping animal in your chest. You can feel the air in your lungs tremble with it. This is the secret 99% of people will never understand. They believe the awe they feel is spiritual. The test was over before it began. You are not being questioned, you are being confirmed. What happens now? What do they do to a soul that holds a memory they cannot burn? What happens to the ones who refuse to forget? This is the sound of a secret the church and the empire were willing to kill for. What they don't want you to know is what a 21st century geological survey found beneath the chapel floor. Not a random holy rock, but a massive, anomalous deposit of lodestone and a rare, resonant quartz crystal. And they weren't natural. They were arranged in a precise, unnatural spiral, a coil, an amplifier. This wasn't a stone, it was a device. And then, investigators found the monastery's financial records from that year, ledgers they believed had been conveniently lost to fire. She doesn't offer you a cure for your sickness. She offers you a key. In her hands are not poisons, but promises. Valerian root, dried hops, lavender. She grinds them with a stone pestle, and the ASMR-like sound, a soft, rhythmic thumped scrape, is the first truly peaceful thing you've heard all day. She tells you the church has it all backwards. These herbs are not sedatives to simply knock you out. They are portals. They don't shorten the night. They deepen it. They tell you the emperor won. They tell you the story ended in the 15th century, that the war for the human mind was fought and lost in the dark, that the edicts, the taxes on consciousness, the great sonic cathedrals that pounded the old ways into dust, that it all worked. They want you to believe that segmented sleep is just a historical curiosity, that the echo of Eden was nothing more than a peasant myth. 99% of people believe this lie. It was a genetic purge on a continental scale. They weren't breeding out birth defects, they were breeding out a psychic gift. Every priest with a parish ledger became an unwitting geneticist. Every rejected marriage proposal, every broken heart like yours, was a calculated move in a war you didn't even know was being fought. It's the same chilling logic that echoes today in debates about who owns your genetic code, about the data you freely give to corporations that can map your future, your weaknesses, your potential, and every part of you, from your shivering skin to your rattling bones, is supposed to believe this feeling is the presence of God. But they don't want you to know what's really happening. The architect, the bishop, the masons who whispered secrets as they laid the stones, they knew. The very shape of this salvation is a weapon. Vaulted ceilings that soar into the gloom aren't just to draw your eyes upward. They are a parabolic dish. The immense rose window isn't just a story in glass. It's an acoustic lens. The ultimate form of control isn't a prison of walls and bars, but a prison you build yourself every single morning inside your own skull. The scratching of the quill stops. The silence in the room becomes a physical weight. He leans forward, the candlelight carving deep shadows into his face. His voice drops to a conspiratorial whisper, a serpent's hiss. "Tell me of the silver forests," he says, and the metallic taste of fear floods your mouth. "Tell me of the music with no instruments." He knows. He knows what you saw. The air is heavy with the scent of wet earth and something else, a faint electric tang, like the air after a lightning strike. Now, listen. Past the drip of water, tracing paths down the stone, there is another sound. It's a hum so low you feel it in your teeth before you hear it with your ears. A deep, resonant thrum that makes the fine layer of dust on the floor tremble in intricate, shifting patterns. That is the ASMR of a forgotten technology singing its quiet song. They don't want you well. They want you awake and miserable, your body too sick to seek the sinful comfort of sleep. But there is another medicine, a forbidden one. You wait until the moon is high and the priest is asleep. You slip out of your hut, the damp earth cold beneath your bare feet, and navigate the darkened lanes to a cottage on the edge of the village, the one respectable folk shun. Inside, a woman whose grandmother taught her the old ways is waiting. They call her a witch. You call her a healer. In what were they trying to release from their cranial prison into the world? These were the people who could hear the whispers of the past, who could walk in the echo of Eden, the lingering psychic resonance of a world before the fall. They called these people saints when they were useful, and witches when they were not. Analysis of the family trees of hundreds of accused dream witches across Europe revealed a shocking connection. They were almost all distantly related, threads of the same ancestral tapestry. So the order came down from on high, cloaked in piety. No more marriages between cousins, no matter how distant. They told you the music of God would save your soul. They never told you it was designed to imprison it. You stand on the cold flagstones of the new cathedral, a giant's ribcage of stone and glass arching into the heavens. The air is thick with the sweet, cloying smell of incense and the damp wool of 100 unwashed bodies pressed together in pews. Light, fractured into 1,000 shards of ruby and sapphire, bleeds through the stained glass saints, painting their silent judgment across your face. It is magnificent. It is terrifying. When a truth is too powerful to debunk, you don't fight it. You poison the source. You take a genuine human experience and rebrand it as a dangerous lie from a hated enemy. Just as a modern political truth can be dismissed as fake news or foreign propaganda, your sacred vision is twisted into a communion with a demon. By making the memory of freedom a crime, they have forced an entire population to police their own minds, to wake in the morning with a gasp, and desperately, consciously, try to forget the beauty they were just shown. What they call the dreaming stone was a lie told to keep you calm. The truth, buried for 8 centuries under a chapel in Aachen, is that 99% of people have no idea they are walking over the grave of a machine. It wasn't a holy relic. It was a weapon of mass revelation. You are back in that cellar. Feel the cold seeping through the thin soles of your shoes, a dampness that clings to the very marrow of your bones. So they made your very need for rest a mortal sin. The cure is a punishment. You can still feel the ghost of the pincer's bite on your arm, and you can smell the other treatment. It's a poultice they force on you, a thick, cloying paste of herbs meant to be an anti-sloth remedy. The sweet, sick smell fills your small hovel, a scent of rotting flowers and bitter greens. What 99% of people never learn is that these poultices often contained mild poisons, hemlock sap, nightshade berries, just enough to induce a constant, low-grade nausea, enough to make rest impossible. This archaeological cover-up is precisely that. It proves the war for consciousness, the struggle against the forces that sought to contain the human mind, was never just psychological. It was brutally, terrifyingly physical. The bone does not lie. The marks are there, a final scream etched into the skull from the inside. It begs the question that has kept the journal's author awake for a week. If they were strong enough to carve their own bone with the force of their mind, what were they fighting against? You see Alara's face collapse, the hope draining from it like water from a broken cup. Your heartbreak isn't a tragedy to the man in front of you. It's a statistic, a successful data point in the largest and most secret genetic study in human history. This is the secret that changes everything. The Church, with its network of parishes reaching into every hamlet and hovel from Scotland to Sicily, isn't just saving souls, it's mapping them. It's mapping their blood. They found a pattern in the chaos of human lineage, a genetic marker for those they called the dream sensitive. The edges of the candle flame begin to blur, stretching into long golden threads. The faces of your companions melt and reform, their features momentarily unfamiliar. Alara's whisper cuts through the ringing in your ears, a final instruction before the voyage. Remember the symbols, find the others, protect what you learn. The secret knowledge they preserved is waiting, but as the stone floor beneath you seems to fall away, a cold terror grips you, a question that every navigator faces before they close their eyes for the journey. What if this time you can't find your way back? You can feel the dream clinging to you, a phantom limb of a better world, the memory of a sky with two suns, the feeling of breathing air that didn't smell of sickness and mud, a vision of a city built not from stone but from light, a shared vision. They call it the Echo of Eden, and they are terrified of it. The Church claims these dreams are deceptions sent by Satan to mimic divine revelation. But the forbidden truth is far more dangerous. The dreams are real. It's a classic disinformation tactic, one still used today. If the soul was meant to travel to the Echo of Eden, and the way has been forgotten, where have you been going? Every single night when you close your eyes and fall into the dark, your sin has been addressed. The sin of acedia. What they don't want you to know is that this diagnosis was a weapon. The Church declared that excessive sleep, or even just unproductive waking, was a sign of a spiritual disease, a soul-crushing sloth that was a gateway to damnation. But this was no medical discovery. Parish records, sealed for over 800 years, reveal a shocking truth: a 500% spike in acedia. Treatments immediately following the Emperor's edict demanding longer workdays. They needed your hands in the fields, not your head on a pillow. The visceral reality of focusing your entire consciousness, your soul, your will, into a single point of pressure against the inside of your own skull. The ASMR quality sound of your own mind, amplified into a tool, scraping away at the very bone that protects it. It is a testament to a power we have not only forgotten, but have been trained to deny exists. This is the modern equivalent of a government discovering a crashed alien vessel and hiding it, not because they fear panic, but because it would rewrite every law of physics we hold dear. He makes a soft, final tutting sound with his tongue, a noise more devastating than a sword stroke. "The union is forbidden," he says, his voice as hollow as the church nave. "You are cousins to the fourth degree. Canon law is clear. It is an abomination in the sight of the Lord." The words don't make sense. Your fathers were friends. Your grandfathers shared a harvest. A generation ago, this union would have been celebrated, a blessing that strengthened the village. Now, it is a sin. You can see your own wide, frightened eyes reflected in the dark, viscous liquid. This isn't just an escape. It's a weapon. It's a library. It's the last free place in the world. You raise the bowl to your lips. The smell is acrid, like burnt roots and river mud. You tilt it back, and the concoction touches your tongue. An explosion of bitterness, so intense, it makes your jaw ache and your eyes water. You swallow, the thick liquid scratching its way down your throat. A wave of cold washes through you, followed by a dizzying heat. Their crime wasn't casting spells. It was the simple, terrifying act of describing the same dream. His voice is calm, a stark contrast to the frantic hammering in your chest. "Tell me what you saw last night, child." It's the test, and you know it. If your account is vague, a confusing jumble of images, you might be safe. But if it is vivid, if it is coherent, if it matches the testimony of the baker's wife or the weaver's daughter, you are guilty. The text you hold is only a fragment, a single page from a book that held the map. The church burned the library, killed the mapmakers, and told the world it was for their own good. But they didn't get every copy. They didn't find this piece. And as the cold seeps into your bones in this ruined place, a far colder dread washes over you. In his hand is a tool that looks like a pair of iron tweezers, but crueler, with small, sharp teeth at the ends, the wake pincers. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. You know what this is. He leans in, and you feel the icy kiss of the metal against your skin, a razor-thin line of cold on your arm. He applies just enough pressure. A starburst of white-hot pain erupts, designed not to break the skin, but to shatter your peace. You flinch back, a gasp of pain catching in your throat. The man nods, satisfied. But you are here because you know about the forbidden truth, the whispers of the ones they called the Dream Navigators. And in the stillness of this tent, with the sound of a fine brush gently dusting off a 700-year-old femur outside, you understand. This wasn't surgery as we know it. This was an act of psychic violence. In their final desperate moments, these heretics were not trying to escape a physical prison. They were trying to let something out, or, as a more terrifying thought occurs to you, trying to let something else in. Imagine it. The only light bleeds through a high, narrow window, illuminating a river of dust motes dancing in the gloom. The smell is of old stone, beeswax, and something else, the dry, papery scent of judgment. Beside you, Ilara's hand is a small, terrified bird trapped in your own. You feel the tremor run up your arm. The priest, a man whose face seems carved from old wood, doesn't look at you. He looks at a heavy, leather-bound ledger on his lectern, his finger tracing a line of ink that represents your entire world. Your family, her family, a single slip of the tongue in the waking world, a single misplaced word, and the next light you see will be the flames of the pyre. 99% of people who were caught practicing these arts were labeled as witches or demon worshippers, their true purpose erased from the records. Their existence proves a terrifying truth for any empire. Knowledge, once released, can never be fully contained. She holds the bowl out to you first. Your hand trembles as you take it. The pottery is cool and rough against your fingertips. He is not writing your story. He is writing your confession. This is the new terror, whispered about in market stalls and behind cupped hands. After the edict, they created a heresy so insidious it required no witnesses and no physical proof. Oniric pride, they call it. The sin of remembering your dreams too well. What they don't want you to know is that this was never about pride. It was about memory. Specifically, a memory they were desperate to erase. Inquisitorial records, hidden for centuries, reveal thousands of investigations just like this one, targeting those they called dream witches. The Dark Ages weren't an accident of history. They were an engineered reality, a meticulously crafted prison for the human mind, built to hide the light they had seen and were so desperate to extinguish. The Emperor's Edict you learned about, the one that criminalized certain sleep practices, was never about ensuring a productive populace. It was the first lock on the door. It was a law designed to keep your soul inside your body, to make you forget the journey you were born to take every night. The most dangerous sickness in the Middle Ages wasn't the plague. It was the one they invented just for you. You're drifting in that warm, gray space between dreams, the cherished second sleep that mends the soul after a night of broken rest. But a new sound cuts through the quiet. Not the cock's crow, not the distant church bell. It's the soft, metallic click of a hinge right beside your head. Your eyes snap open. A man in a dark cassock stands over your straw bed. His face a mask of pious duty. His elegant script is almost illegible, jagged with shock. It describes the most perfectly preserved of the trepanned skulls. And this is the line that makes the sweat on your neck turn to ice. The cut marks on the bone, they are not from the outside. They appear to be from inside. 99% of the scientific community will tell you this is a physical impossibility, a delusion, a misinterpretation of the data. Bone cannot be carved from within by a living person. What they don't want you to know is that the war against your sleep was also a war against your children. A war fought not with swords, but with marriage licenses and baptismal records. 99% of people believe the church tightened its laws on who you could marry to prevent sickness in the blood. The forbidden truth, hidden in sealed papal letters and the notes of condemned heretics, is that they weren't trying to prevent sickness. They were trying to cure a gift. You stand in the cold, damp air of the parish chantry. Here they pass messages, organize aid for those fleeing the inquisitors, and most importantly, they preserve the knowledge of the dreaming stone. What that is, you don't yet know. You only know it's a secret so profound, they would burn a whole city to keep it buried. Ilara finishes her work. The scraping stops. The sudden silence is heavier than the stone ceiling above you. She looks at each of you, her eyes holding the weight of the stakes. There is a crime they invented that 99% of history books will never mention. A sin so profound, its only evidence was inside your own mind. The stone beneath your bare feet is a block of ice, leaching warmth you can't spare. Before you, A man sits at a heavy oak table. The only sounds are the sputtering of a single tallow candle and the dry, rhythmic scratching of his quill on parchment, a sound like a beetle burrowing into dead wood. He doesn't look at the page. He looks at you. His eyes are flat, patient, inhumanly still. The power structure of the church, of all of European society, would not just crumble. It would evaporate in an instant. This isn't ancient history. It's the same eternal tactic of control. It's why governments today classify every document about UFO phenomena or the results of consciousness experiments. The fear isn't of aliens or of psychic powers. The fear is that the public will discover the true, monumental potential locked inside their own minds. If you knew what you were truly capable of, you would never again consent to being controlled. Or you can resist, keep your bowl, and risk the searing pain of the heretic's fire. The choice is simple, and it is impossible. As you touch a finger to the herbal paste, the metallic taste of fear mixing with the bitter flavor on your tongue, you understand the real stakes. The coming purge isn't just about controlling your body. It's about what they're so afraid of you remembering in the dark. You know about the strange anomaly that is already causing hushed whispers in the archaeological community. In 3 out of every 100 skeletons unearthed, they are finding evidence of trepanation, a hole drilled into the cranium. Primitive, yes, but the clean, healed bone growth proves the patient survived. This is strange, but it is not the secret. The real secret is in the leather-bound journal in your hands, the private thoughts of the lead archaeologist. A man whose hands are now shaking as he sips his wine. You turn to the latest entry, written just last night. He feels the vibration. He sees the golden light. But his mind is asking a question so dangerous, it feels like swallowing glass. If that isn't God, what is it? And did everyone else just fall for the trick? You followed their rules for a month. The fasting that leaves you lightheaded. The meditations that empty your mind. And now this, the final step. The taste of bitter herbs on the tongue is the price of admission to a world beyond their control. This is the medieval dark web, a hidden network of minds, communicating through a symbolic language they developed in a shared dreamscape. It's the same desperate impulse for truth that drives modern hacktivists to leak documents, to expose the rot in the system. It was a secret they hid, not in financial ledgers, but in the very stories they told your children. A poison for the soul, designed to make you fear the one place you thought you were finally safe. But every night, you could leave your body and access the military strategies of Charlemagne, the architectural knowledge of the master builders of Chartres, the medical wisdom of Ibn Sina. What need would you have for a lord? What need would you have for a king? And the most dangerous truth of all, what if you could stand in that place and experience the direct, unfiltered presence of God? No priest as an intermediary, no Latin text you can't read, no cathedral walls. Just you and the divine, raw and overwhelming. The emperor's new edict, the one read aloud in the square last week, wasn't about improving productivity or enforcing a pious sleep schedule. It was about severing this connection. It was about plunging you back into isolated darkness, making you a slave in your own mind as well as in the fields. And the emotional cost of this war for your soul is immense. A choice that cleaves your life in two. You can conform, seal your mind, and accept a kind of spiritual blindness, living out your days in terrified obedience. For 50 years, one archaeological find has been sealed from the public under the highest classifications. This is the reason why. You are in a canvas tent in the south of France, the air thick with the smell of dry earth, Gauloise's cigarettes, and something else, something ancient and metallic. The year is 1972. Outside, under the oppressive sun, a French team is meticulously excavating a mass grave from the 13th century, a pit of skeletons unceremoniously dumped and labeled by history as heretics. You have seen the early reports. They didn't just block a truth. They replaced it with a beautiful, seductive lie. An angel that offers you peace, but only in exchange for your will. You feel tears on your cheeks. You are filled with a sense of profound, holy relief. You have been seen. You have been saved. You are one of the 99%. But in the back of the cathedral, huddled in the shadows, is a man whose eyes are wide with terror, not reverence. You hear the soft, rhythmic scrape, scrape, scrape of her wooden pestle grinding strange dark herbs against the rough stone of the bowl. It's an ASMR quality sound of defiance, a quiet prayer against the silence they want to impose. This is the real history, the one lived in whispers and shadows. They weren't soldiers, they were dreamers, somnium navigators. The knowledge they teach is a heresy punishable by fire. What we would call lucid dreaming, they call navigating the echo of Eden, a forbidden path back to a state of consciousness the church wants walled off forever. Do not seek the quiet moments of clarity that might lead to questions, to dissent, to liberation. Stay in your place or be crushed by the weight of the world we have built for you. This economic pressure, this choice between spiritual freedom and an empty stomach, was the first prong of their attack. It was designed to exhaust you, to keep you so focused on the fear of the next knock that you never had the energy to look up. But the second prong of the attack was far more insidious. The text describes it with a terrifying sensory clarity. It speaks of hearing the color blue as a low, resonant hum. It describes the taste of pure mathematics, sharp and cold like winter air. It tells of being able to touch the memory of the first man to see the ocean, feeling his awe as your own. Imagine you are a peasant, your world a circle of mud and toil 3 miles wide. You are accessing a form of collective consciousness, a silent, psychic network that connects you to the blacksmith's wife, the farmer in the next valley, the young woman who was taken to the Lord's castle last week and hasn't been seen since. Information, dissent, and a current of shared strength flow in this space without a single word being spoken. It is the medieval equivalent of a government discovering its citizens have a telepathic internet it cannot monitor and cannot shut down. So of course, they try. It rolls across the stone floor and stops at your feet. It's not a hawk or a dove. It's a cuckoo, the bird that lays its egg in another's nest. The final piece of the puzzle isn't about a conspiracy. It's about a replacement. And now, the fool knows that you have it. You are no longer just a courtier. You are a witness, and in a kingdom built on a lie, a witness is the one thing more dangerous than a fool. The sonic frequencies engineered into the stone, combined with the extreme psychological pressure of medieval life and the powerful, targeted suggestion from the pulpit, created a controlled, waking dream. They found the frequency of faith and hijacked it. They jammed the faint, natural signal of what some heretics called the echo of Eden, that wild, personal, and uncontrollable connection to the divine, and they replaced it with their own broadcast. It's the medieval blueprint for every piece of modern propaganda that has ever existed. Create the crisis of fear, then sell a prepackaged solution that serves the powerful. There are 5 of you, huddled in this forbidden space beneath a weaver's shop, your faces pale and grim in the flickering gloom. Above, the city sleeps under the iron fist of the emperor and his edict, the consciousness tax that claims a piece of every waking thought. But down here, a resistance is being born. You watch Ilara. Her face, etched with lines of worry and wisdom, is illuminated as she leans over the watching bowl. One of the very artifacts the Inquisition hunts with such ravenous fury. This is how they control you. Not with swords and armies, but with a knock on the door in the dark. It's a tactic as old as power itself, a ghost that whispers in our own world. Think of the modern systems that penalize those who don't conform. The social credit scores that reward quiet obedience. The corporate cultures that punish the innovator who steps out of line. The message, echoing across 700 years, is identical. Stay in your assigned box. Do not be awake when we require you to be asleep. It describes it as a nightly exodus, a journey, the feeling of the soul untethering from the flesh, a sudden, shocking weightlessness as you rise not into darkness, but into a different kind of light. A realm the text calls the echo of Eden. And this is the secret the church was willing to kill tens of thousands to bury. The echo of Eden wasn't a heaven or a hell. It was a repository, a living library of all human experience, a non-physical space where every thought, every memory, every discovery was stored. The priest, his face flushed with wine and self-righteousness, calls it witchcraft from his pulpit. The local reeve calls it sedition. They are both right, and they are both terrified. Because what you are doing, what everyone you trust is doing, in the unnerving silence of their own homes, is a form of mass, silent rebellion. In the watch, you aren't just praying or thinking about the back-breaking labor waiting for you at dawn. You are plugging in. This is the cognitive pestilence they have always feared, the great awakening they spent a millennium trying to prevent. They lied about the past to control your present. They buried the truth about your mind's true potential. What else are they lying about right now? He looks at Pip, not with amusement, but with a cold, primal terror. The jester isn't just exposing the secrets of the court. He's questioning the very foundation upon which the crown rests. He's asking about the secret of the bloodline itself. Pip looks past the king, and his gaze lands on you again. This time, there is no madness in it. Just a terrifying, lucid recognition. He hops off the table, the bells on his hat a final, chilling punctuation. As he skips away into the shadows of the hall, he drops something. A small, carved wooden bird. It is beautiful, calm, and its message, which you don't hear with your ears, but feel as a profound certainty in your soul, is always the same. Obey the church. Trust the king. Your reward is in heaven. Peace is found not in questions, but in submission. This is the forbidden truth, the secret that 99% of people, then and now, would call a miracle. It isn't. This is a manufactured hallucination, a weapon. It is the first and most effective psychological operation in recorded history. For centuries, they were dismissed as simple merchants' ledgers, boring accounts of wool and grain. 99% of historians, using traditional methods, saw nothing more. But they buried this secret because it proves their control was never absolute. You are not a historian. You are here, now. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth and stale fear. You press your back against the cold, sweating stone of the cellar, your breath held tight in your chest. A single tallow candle sputters on a crate, its weak light making shadows writhe like demons on the walls. The 2 pennies they will take from you for being awake is the exact price of the grain that would feed your family for 3 days. They have weaponized survival. They have made the very act of being a conscious human in the quiet, sacred dark a crime punishable by starvation. You squeeze your eyes shut, feigning the deep sleep of the compliant. You can hear the wooden latch groaning as he tests the door. You can almost feel his presence on the other side, listening, sensing for any sign of a mind at work. What they don't want you to know is that the Albigensian Crusade, the holy war that leveled this place, wasn't a war on heresy. It was an act of extermination aimed at a single, terrifying idea. 99% of people believe the Church hunted the Cathars for their dualist beliefs, for their rejection of the priesthood. But that was only the excuse. The real reason was what they knew about the nature of sleep. The fragment in your hands feels alive. The ink still stark against the page. It doesn't describe sleep as rest for a weary body. It's small, cool clay, fitting perfectly into the cup of your palm. Your fingernail makes a soft, scratching sound against its unglazed rim, an ASMR trigger for a ritual centuries old. Inside is a paste of herbs. Not the kind for getting high, that is a fool's errand. This is for focus, for clarity. A new archaeological dig in a clandestine settlement, a place wiped from official maps, has just uncovered thousands of these bowls. The chemical signatures of henbane and mugwort still clinging to the clay after 800 years. This wasn't a party, it was a sacrament. The powers that be, from medieval tyrants to modern tech giants, have always known the greatest threat to their control is a populace that is rested, clear-headed, and connected to its own inner truth. They don't need to burn books when they can bury you in information. They don't need to outlaw sleep when they can fill your nights with dread and your days with distraction. And here is the final, visceral terror. The dam is breaking now. The rise in mass anxiety, the collective search for meaning, the feeling that society is on the brink. This is the pressure building. What has the face of a lion? He gestures to the king, whose sigil is a golden lion, but the blood of a lamb. And there it is, the pattern interrupt. The line that doesn't fit the previous accusations. The hawk, the barren queen, those are courtly intrigues. But this is something else, something older. The blood of a lamb, a symbol of sacrifice, of replacement, of a substitute. It's a reference so ancient, so heretical, it belongs to the time before the current dynasty. The king stops laughing. For the first time all night, his eyes are clear. His words are a hypnotic cadence, a key turning a lock in your mind. The light from the stained glass windows seems to shift, to coalesce into a single blindingly golden point. The hum intensifies. Your desperation for comfort, for an answer to the gnawing fear of plague and famine and a meaningless death, reaches a fever pitch. And then you see it. An angel. It hovers in the golden light, serene and perfect. It has no terrifying eyes of burning coal, no chaotic storm of wings like the wild visions of the desert saints. This angel is standardized. They were finding the old ways, the forbidden paths around the wall. They were learning how to pick the lock. 1 silver penny a week. If your fire is lit, a tax on warmth. But court documents from the era, documents most historians ignore, reveal the terrifying codicil. If the bailiff arrives and you are found to be awake, if a candle is lit, if your eyes are open when he pushes through the door, if you are caught in the act of thinking, the tax is doubled. It's not a hearth tax. It's a wakefulness tax. A brilliant, cruel piece of social engineering buried under layers of mundane finance. The wind that whispers through this ruin near Montségur carries the ghost of 1,000,000 burned books, the phantom smell of scorched vellum and boiled leather. Your fingers, raw and cold, trace the edge of the discovery. You scraped away the earth beneath a loose flagstone, a dry, scratching sound of nail against rock that felt deafening in the silence. And there it was, not a book, but a piece of one, wrapped in oilcloth, preserved in a bed of ash. The somnium animi, the dream of the soul. It's a silence that is alive. And in this silence, you are more awake than you have ever been in the daylight. 99% of people will never know that this state of consciousness was not a bug of pre-industrial life, but its most sacred feature. This is the time when the veil between worlds thins to the texture of smoke, a time when the ancestors feel less like memories and more like neighbors listening from the next room. You reach for the watching bowl. On the packed earth floor, beside your straw mattress, the purge of dream-sensitive bloodlines has just become more sophisticated. It is the subtle pressure to conform, to medicate a child's focus until it fits a spreadsheet, to standardize the very way your brain is allowed to work. But they failed. The echo of Eden, that deep collective wellspring of truth, was never destroyed. You feel it. It's the gut feeling that tells you the world as presented is a lie. It's the shiver of synchronicity that makes you look up and wonder. It's the same reason a modern-day CEO might listen to a janitor who overhears everything. The fool is a canary in the coal mine of the soul, and his madness is the only reliable alarm system in a court choking on silent treason. His gibberish is plausible deniability incarnate. Pip hops onto the table, his bare feet landing with a soft, unnerving thump right beside a platter of cold boar. He leans down, his face inches from the king's. "So tell me, my lord," he whispers, a sound that carries through the entire hall. As the choir's Latin chants rise and fall, their notes don't just echo, they lock into that frequency, amplifying it, turning the entire cathedral into a colossal resonance chamber. You can feel the sound wave passing through you, a physical pressure in your chest. Your breathing changes. Your heart rate slows to match the rhythm. This is why you came. This is the feeling of God's presence. Or so you've been told. The priest's voice cuts through the chant, speaking of obedience, of the divine right of kings, of the damnation that awaits those who follow their own idle dreams. Proof that their psychological dominion was absolute, that they could not only police your waking thoughts, but could lock down the very frontiers of your subconscious. They were weaponizing the glitches in their own machine, turning the soul's agony into another tool of fear, another reason to beg for their protection. But what the church, in its monolithic arrogance, never accounted for was that if you cage a soul, it doesn't just die. it learns the shape of its prison. And in the dark forests and hidden valleys, far from the cathedrals and their edicts, some people were remembering. First, the squelch of heavy boots in the mud of the path. Then, the scrape of a metal-tipped staff against stone. And finally, the one sound that rips the dark in two, the splintering crack of heavy knuckles on your wooden door. Thump, thump, thump. Your heart stops. Every muscle locks. The metallic taste of adrenaline floods your mouth. This is the watch, the hour ordained by the emperor's edict where the bailiff makes his rounds. He isn't checking for criminals. He's checking for consciousness. The law, as written in the ledgers, is a tax on your hearth. 3 people knew the book survived the fire. Within a year, 2 of them would be dead, their ends dismissed as the kind of clumsy, final accidents that litter the medieval world. But you know the truth. You are the 3rd, and in your hands, you hold the reason they died. A single fire-scarred fragment of a secret that could burn the world down all over again. You are standing in the skeleton of a library. The stone ribs of arches claw at the sky, black with soot that has clung for a century. The fire has died to a pile of embers, a single glowing orange eye in the darkness of your hut. The chill doesn't just knock at the door, it seeps through the daub and wattle walls, a physical presence that crawls over your skin and settles deep in your joints. This is the hour known as the watch. It's a silence so profound you can hear the blood drumming in your own ears, a sound like a distant, frantic signal. This is the silence of a world without the hum of electricity, without the drone of distant traffic. In their place is a new frequency, the constant, low-level hum of anxiety from the endless scroll, a vibration engineered not to inform you, but to keep you agitated, compliant, and always consuming. 99% of people believe they are free, but they sleep and wake according to bells they cannot hear, controlled by a system designed 1,000 years ago to sever them from their own intuition. The inquisitor who punished dream witches is now the algorithm that silences your dissent, that brands a questioning thought as misinformation. He is a living artifact, a relic from a time before the Great Forgetting, before the genetic purges that sought to sever humanity's connection to the unseen world. He is one of the touched, an individual whose mind is a broken radio, still picking up static from the echo of Eden. This is why he is here. It's the greatest secret of state security. Instead of burning these seers as heretics, the truly powerful did something far more intelligent. They institutionalized them in the safest place imaginable, right beside the throne, disguised as harmless amusement, a moment of peace in a life defined by pain. Above you, the cathedral soars into shadow, a man-made mountain designed to make you feel small. And it works. But it's not the height that's affecting you, it's the sound. It begins as a hum, a vibration you feel more in your teeth and sternum than you hear with your ears. It's a low, resonant frequency that the master masons built into the very bones of this place, a secret in the architecture. It's no different from the documented spike in anxiety and depression in our own hyper-connected, yet spiritually desolate, modern world. It's the same hollow ache of a soul starving for a connection it was built for, but can no longer find. This is the darkest truth of all, the one they will never teach you. This was not a bug in their system of control, it was a feature. The Church Fathers and their secular enforcers saw the reports of incubi and succubi, of night terrors and demonic visitations, and they didn't see a problem. They saw proof. You are curled on a straw pallet, the thin wool blanket doing little more than trapping the scent of damp earth and your own fear. You are trying to be impossibly still. Your wife's breath beside you is a shallow, sleeping rhythm. Your child whimpers, a tiny sound swallowed by the oppressive dark. You pray to a God you're not sure listens, that the sound doesn't carry. Because out there, in the ink-black nothing that separates night from day, he is walking. You don't know his name. You only know his sound. But you have a back door in reality itself. You are logging on. Your mind, freed from your aching body, reaches out across the sleeping fields, connecting with other minds lying over other patterns. A web of consciousness hidden in plain sight. But as your awareness expands, joining the silent chorus, a terrifying and exhilarating question echoes back through the network. A question that forms the bedrock of this entire conspiracy. A signal requires a source. What or who is broadcasting? The official story is a comfortable lie. They'll tell you that the deep, dreamless night of the modern world is a luxury, and that your medieval ancestors slept in 2 shifts out of necessity, a first sleep and a second sleep, a simple response to the tyranny of a world without light bulbs. It's a sanitized academic explanation for a secret they buried so deep they hoped the roots of time would choke it. But the truth is in your bones. You feel it now. The secret they buried deepest wasn't about the emperor who tried to outlaw sleep. It was that his war on your consciousness was never meant to end. It was only meant to become invisible. The emperor's edict is no longer carved in stone. It's etched into the relentless glow of your screen, the 24/7 work cycle that whispers that rest is weakness, that glorifies the hustle until your bones ache with a fatigue you can't name. The sonic cathedrals that shattered the medieval mind are gone. The queen, a woman famed for her piety and her inability to produce an heir, flinches as if struck. Her ladies-in-waiting stare at their plates, their faces frozen masks. This is the fool's power, not comedy. It's a form of spiritual warfare, fought with words that have 2 edges. To the king, it is nonsense. To the guilty, it is a perfectly articulated confession. What they don't want you to know is that the fool was never meant to be an entertainer. The angels they saw weren't from heaven. They were a broadcast, a signal beamed directly into the minds of the faithful. And the secret of how they did it strikes at the very heart of belief itself. You are kneeling. The stone floor is so cold it feels wet, leaching warmth from your knees through the rough wool of your tunic. The air is thick with the scent of beeswax, melting incense, and the damp, close smell of 100 unwashed bodies, all praying for the same thing. A sign, a release. It's the sound of fingernails, brittle, desperate, dragging against rough stone. It's an ASMR-quality horror that floods your nervous system. But your eyes, wide with a terror that cannot produce a scream, see only the dirt floor. There is no stone. There is no one there. This is the feedback loop, the screech of a system tearing itself apart. Your mind is trying to process an impossible event, a journey blocked, a connection severed, and it fills in the blanks with the deepest fears your culture has given you. A shadowy figure in the corner, the leathery beat of unseen wings. 99% of people who study medieval history believe the hearth tax was a simple levy on your fireplace. They see it in the financial records, a mundane entry, and they move on. But they miss the secret hidden in plain sight, the real reason for the tax. It wasn't about your fire. It was about your mind. The hour before dawn is the coldest. It's a dead, silent cold that seeps through the wattle and daub of your hut, a cold that promises no warmth to come. There is a taste in your mouth, sharp and metallic, like licking a cold coin. It's the taste of ozone. Then comes the sound, an ASMR quality hum so low it's more of a vibration in your teeth than a noise in your ears, perceptible only in the dead quiet of the midnight watch. You are tuning in. This is the forbidden knowledge. The peasant class wasn't just sleeping, they were connecting to a secret, encrypted network. It's the same principle our modern masters use, hiding back doors in the software that runs our lives. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. It reads, "They did not outlaw sleep. They built a dam, and all dams eventually break." Your skin crawls with a horrifying, electric certainty. This isn't a story about the past. It's a weather report for tomorrow. "I have a shadow that hunts in the day," Pip begins, his voice lilting like a nursery rhyme. "I have a promise that birds betray." A fine sweat breaks out on the brow of the Duke seated opposite you. His family crest is a hunting hawk. You've heard the whispers of his secret meetings with emissaries from the north. He grips his silver goblet, his knuckles white. "I wear a crown that isn't mine," Pip continues, taking a strange, lopsided step towards the queen. "And drink a bitter, barren wine." They have no idea that their dreams were stolen from them this morning, replaced by a carefully crafted broadcast of spiritual silence. The old connection has been severed, the line cut, and as you stand in the humming quiet, a horrifying question begins to form, a sliver of ice in your heart. If they took away the signal from the dreaming stone, what signal did they replace it with? It soared from your body, expecting the open heavens, and instead slammed violently into this invisible, unyielding wall. The feeling of paralysis is the shockwave of that impact. Your consciousness ripped back into your flesh with the force of a thunderclap. The crushing weight on your chest is your own spirit, disoriented and terrified, fighting to get back into a body that is suddenly a prison. It's the spiritual equivalent of a failed-to-load web page, a 404 error for the human soul. The sound is what finally breaks you, a dry, rhythmic scraping echoing from just beside your bed. It was vibrating in the minds of thousands. It had become part of the dreamscape, part of reality itself. How do you destroy an idea? How do you kill a ghost that lives inside everyone's head? The official reports from our time, from places like the excavated village of Warham Percy, dismiss them as ritual markings of unknown significance. That's the academic code for "we are hiding the truth." Because this isn't a prayer, it's a key. What they don't want you to know is that these symbols were designed to interact with the one thing you truly own, the faint electrical field of your own body. As you drift into the liminal space between waking and sleeping, something happens. A clue lies in a reburied monastery cellar in Aachen, where 14th century monks found something their journal described only as the dreaming stone. An object so powerful, they immediately built a new chapel on top of it to seal it away forever. This is about a cover-up so profound, it has shaped our reality for 1,000 years. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. A waking dream from which no one could escape. It's a feeling you felt your whole life, but never had a name for. That quiet scream just beneath the noise of the modern world. It's the same feeling that makes you stare at a screen until your eyes burn. The same low hum of anxiety that follows you everywhere. It's not a bug in our system. It's a feature of theirs. The last line of the hidden text is not a whisper. It is a roar that echoes across 500 years to find you. Right here, right now. His eyes, two different colors, one the blue of a summer sky and one the gray of a gathering storm. Find yours for a fraction of a second. You look away, focusing on the dark knot in the wood of the table before you. "A riddle, my king," Pip chirps, his voice a disarming flute in the heavy silence. "For you and your loyal court." The king waves a hand, a gesture of drunken permission. The lords and ladies around you shift. They are not adjusting for comfort. They are bracing. It's a ringing, humming void where the old signal used to be. You feel it in your teeth, a phantom vibration. The feeling they've given you in its place is one of profound, peaceful submission. Awe, obedience, a quiet certainty that this stone fortress is your only refuge. The battle for your mind, for your very soul, isn't being fought with swords or scripture. It's being fought with sound. You look around at the faces of your neighbors, their eyes wide and glassy, fixed on the altar. They feel safe. They feel saved. For millennia, it has made a nightly pilgrimage to a place your conscious mind has no name for. A resonant memory field the mystics called the Echo of Eden. It is a place of archetypes, of connection, of psychic renewal. But the church, in its war on consciousness, has built a wall. Through edicts, through fear, through the constant grinding sermon of sin and damnation, they have erected a spiritual barrier around every soul in Christendom. And tonight, your soul tried to make its journey, just as modern whistleblowers are hunted, discredited, and silenced for exposing uncomfortable truths. The creators of this device and those who listened were marked for termination. The system couldn't allow it. The truth was a virus that would dissolve the hierarchies of fear and faith they had built. So the emperor and the pope had to act. They didn't just want to outlaw sleep, as their first frantic edicts suggested. They had to sever the connection at its source. But smashing the device in the cellar wasn't enough. The signal was already out, but for you, and for thousands like you, the real work is about to begin. You close your eyes. You don't pray. You listen. Beneath the straw, hidden from the prying eyes of the priest and the reeve, is the pattern. It's not decoration. It's a technology. Weeks ago, you spent a moonless night carving it into the packed earth with a shard of bone. A complex geometry of interlocking lines and circles, almost like a circuit board printed in mud. What they don't want you to know is that a forgotten emperor issued an edict so monstrous it sounds like fiction, the decree of unbroken slumber. Officially, it was to increase productivity for God and King, but buried in a sealed Vatican archive is the papal bull that supported it, which refers to a cognitive pestilence spreading through the populace during these waking hours. What pestilence? What were ordinary people like you discovering in the dark that terrified the most powerful institutions on Earth? Damned up, the text describes how the psychic pressure would build, silently, generation after generation, until a specific set of conditions were met. Until the world becomes, and your blood runs cold as you read the words saturated with artificial light and sound, and the minds of men are enslaved by a global web of lies. You have to read it again. The hum of the lab equipment fades to a distant drone. The prophecy says that under these conditions, the pressure would become unbearable. The connection wouldn't just return. It would reestablish itself violently, uncontrollably, a psychic flood. Before him, Pip, the fool, is juggling skulls. Not real ones, carved from old wood, but the symbolism is lost on no one. The air is thick with the smell of spilled ale and something else, something acrid and sharp. It's the metallic tang of fear, and you can taste it on the back of your tongue. Pip lets the skulls clatter to the floor. The hall falls silent. The only sound the soft jingle-jingle of the bells on his motley cap. The small, smooth river rock your grandmother taught you to hold as you slept. The one that supposedly let your spirit walk the old paths in your sleep, to learn the truths the daylight world hides. The church calls it paganism, a demonic lie. But if it's a lie, why have they spent so much gold, so much stone, so much human sweat to build a machine designed specifically to drown it out? The final, bone-shaking chord from the organ fades. A profound silence descends. But it isn't empty. This is the moment the priest warned you about, the punishment for a fleeting, unholy thought you had at market yesterday. The demon has come for you. But what if the priest is wrong? What if he's lying? The forbidden knowledge, the secret that changes everything, isn't in the what, but the why. You aren't being attacked by a creature from hell. You are experiencing the shrapnel of a spiritual detonation, a psychic trauma inflicted on a mass scale. Imagine your soul. That luminous, weightless part of you is meant to travel in sleep. You dream you are standing in the bishop's counting house, watching him use a weighted scale to steal from the tithe offering. The next morning, you see your neighbor, and his eyes are wide. He saw it too. A week later, you both dream of the local baron meeting secretly with a rival duke, pledging his swords in a coming war of betrayal. It was the medieval equivalent of a rebel radio transmitter, broadcasting the encrypted data of power directly into the minds of the powerless. It was a leak of consciousness. The most important thing in your life is not the cross on the wall, nor the Lord in his castle. It's the dirt floor beneath your bed, and the secret etched into it is something 99% of historians still refuse to discuss. You lie down. The straw prickles your skin through the thin wool of your tunic. The cold seeps up from the earth, a damp, living thing that tries to steal the warmth from your bones. This is the end of another day of back-breaking survival. This liminal state, what historians politely call segmented sleep, was a spiritual and informational battleground. It was when forbidden knowledge was shared, when folk magic was practiced, and when the secrets of the powerful became whispers in the dark. They called this time the Devil's Hour, but it wasn't piety. It was fear. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. But this quiet hour of waking is where the real history was made and then systematically erased. The lost wisdom, the forbidden science, and then you see it. The final section. It isn't an instruction, it's a prophecy. Your skin prickles. The words describe how the Dreaming Stone, the artifact the Emperor's forces hunted with such fanaticism, was never the source of the power. It was only an amplifier, a lens. The prophecy states, in a script that looks terrifyingly precise, that the true source is, and has always been, humanity itself. You feel a tremor of understanding, a connection to that long-dead witch. She knew. They all knew. The connection was not severed. It was only suppressed. The most dangerous man in the kingdom wears a hat with bells on it, and 99% of people think he's a comedian. They never realize that in a world of lies, the only one allowed to speak the truth is the one everyone has already agreed is insane. You are sitting at the long table, close enough to the royal dais to feel the heat from the hearth on your left cheek and the cold dread seeping from the stone walls on your right. The king is laughing, a booming, wine-soaked sound that doesn't reach his eyes. Standing here for morning mass, you are being bathed in frequencies that will make it harder for your soul to travel when you sleep tonight. It is a mass inoculation against a truth they are desperate to suppress. They are jamming a signal. And you know, in the part of you that still remembers the old ways, which signal they're jamming. Before the emperor's edict, before these colossal stone broadcast towers were erected in every major town, there was the dreaming stone. The visitations spiked with chilling precision only in the regions where the emperor's new edict was being enforced with fire and steel. You feel it now. Your body is lead, pinned to the lumpy straw mattress. You try to scream, but your throat is a locked box. Cold sweat slicks your skin, and the air, thick with the smell of wood smoke and damp earth, feels impossibly heavy, a physical presence crushing your lungs. Your heart hammers against your ribs. A frantic bird trapped in a cage of bone. It took the faint, subconscious signal people were already receiving, the nagging feeling that something was wrong, the ghost of a memory of a better way, and it made that signal crystal clear. This is the truth behind the cognitive pestilence the Pope wrote about in his panicked letters. It wasn't a disease, it was clarity. Suddenly, hundreds, maybe thousands of people in the region were having the same shared, vivid dreams. Imagine it. You, a serf, fall into an exhausted sleep on your straw pallet, and you don't dream of harvests or saints. The church isn't just afraid of you being lazy. They're not afraid of you resting your body. They are terrified of what you might find when you truly rest your mind. They believe the dream world is not empty. They believe something is in there, waiting. And if you sleep too deeply, you might just meet it. The question that hangs in the smoky air, more chilling than any wake pincer, is not if you will sleep, but what will you bring back with you when you do? 99% of people believe medieval sleep was a simple rest from a brutal life. The truth is, the church and the nobility didn't just wage a war for your soul. They waged a secret war to control your dreams. The fire is dying. You taste the ash on your tongue. You've just woken from your first sleep, and the hut is silent, but for the wet sound of rotting thatch dripping near your head. You are wide awake. This isn't insomnia. This is the Dorveil, the watching hour between sleeps, and it is the most dangerous time of your life.